So one of the things I think we need to be aware of whenever there's a mass traumatic event like a mass shooting is that people are going to take advantage of that event to try to make political or ideological points. And once again, as with the shooting in Virginia by Vester Lee Flanagan, we have Bill O'Reilly on the O'Reilly Factor taking advantage of this incident on the eve of the incident itself, before he even knows the name of the guy or has even an accurate age to report, to denigrate people who do not have faith in the unseen. And ironically, at the beginning of his broadcast, he was criticizing Barack Obama, and I think rightfully so, actually, for politicizing the event before all the facts are in, to talk about gun control without even knowing any of the relevant facts of the case. And that's not to say that I'm a gun rights activist per se. I don't actually own any firearms. If you come onto my property unwelcomed, I'm likely to chase you off with a chainsaw or an axe. I don't own any firearms, but that's not to say that I don't think that law-abiding citizens shouldn't be able to arm themselves if they so see fit and they're responsible, etc., etc. But I think it's a little bit early to jump to that bandwagon. But of course, again, as he did with the Vester Lee Flanagan incident, Bill O'Reilly took it upon himself at the end of his broadcast to wax philosophic about how people who don't have faith, that it's essentially a culture of me and that anything goes, and to basically tie these incidents to people who don't have faith. And so he talked about it on an individual level, about how, basically all these atrocities in history are caused by either people who don't have faith or by cultures that are not faith-based. Seemingly not as much of a student of history as he would like all of us to believe. And I'm not exactly sure, of course, I don't know Vester Lee Flanagan, but it was reported about the day after Bill O'Reilly made his original assertions that this is what happens when you don't have faith, faith in the unseen, because that's where virtue should come from, right? This is what happens, and it turned out that Vester Lee Flanagan was not only a Jehovah's Witness, but actually in his manifesto apparently purported that that Jehovah had instructed him to conduct these acts. And of course, it's interesting that Bill O'Reilly would talk about faith and believing in a higher purpose and that sort of thing as somehow grounding someone in virtue and morality, when there are other faiths that are a little bit more violent and can potentially lead people to commit violent acts. He would seemingly need to disconnect, I would think, from those, just to say that faith in general leads to virtue. But of course, the flip side of his ridiculous argument is that nobody of faith then should be committing any atrocities or committing any violent acts. If that's what you're saying, if you're saying a lack of faith is what leads people to do these things, then people who have faith shouldn't be doing any of those things. And of course we know that that's not the case. And it wouldn't surprise me to find out that this particular person who did the Oregon shooting had some faith. Maybe he didn't, I don't know. And it seems to me that there is some element of religion involved here, because there's been the reporting that, he asked people what their religious beliefs were, and then he chose where to shoot them, basically, or whether or not to shoot them based on their response. And of course, the right-wing news are making hay of that, Christian persecution, that sort of thing. But Bill O'Reilly even went as far as to use the tired line that many of us who don't have faith have heard before, and that is, if you believe in nothing, then anything goes. As though there's such a thing as an atheist who doesn't believe in anything. That's ridiculous. And of course, I think there's a reasonable case to be made for doing the moral thing for the good of the moral thing itself, rather than doing it for some sort of promise of eternal reward or the threat of an eternal punishment. That's not to say that all Christians who operate morally do so because of those things, that they're motivated solely by those promises. However, those who do, I think, are demonstrating that they're actually not moral. They're just selfish and fearful, possibly, of punishment. It's just tiring, and it's really ironic that, again, and obviously hypocritical, that Bill O'Reilly would chastise Barack Obama for politicizing the event and then take advantage, before even knowing the name of the perpetrator and the correct age and anything else about this guy to take the opportunity to wax on about people who don't have faith in the unseen. I mean, let's cut to the chase here and talk about what this really means. Is that people who don't have faith in something that they have no way of verifying, that those people lack virtue, that those people are the unethical ones. Ridiculous. And the other thing that I find interesting too is Bill O'Reilly himself. He does a lot of pandering. He won't come out and say what his religious beliefs are. And of course, he's doing that, obviously, I think, for a very important reason for himself and for his ratings and for his viewership, is he doesn't want to alienate anybody. He doesn't want to polarize his own little niche, right? And so he never really comes out. He talks about the deity. And he won't come out and say, I think if he's pressed, he will say that he's a Catholic. But I'm not even sure about that. And he's very careful about just, about towing the line of this amorphous gray area. I believe in a deity. I have faith in general. And of course, that poses a bit of a problem, I think, too, for this idea that he's pushing forth, that it's people that lack faith who lack virtue. Because there's many different faiths out there, and they're not all as virtuous as one another, and not all of them, teach the same kind of morality that I think we accept in general in our secular Western civilization, right? So anyway, it's just really disheartening to see that, and obviously my heart goes out to the families and all of the people who've been traumatized by this event in Oregon. It's horrific. And I wouldn't have made a video about it at all, except to point this out, this politicization and the way these ideologues jump on something like that in a hypocritic fashion to make points that are, in some ways, it's a demonization. It's a demonization of atheists, and I can see a lot of religious people watching the broadcast and shaking their heads, nodding in affirmation that, yep, this is what happens when you don't believe in anything, that anything then goes. Thanks for watching.